On the program today, we turn our attention to the politics of zoning ahead of the 2027 elections. In every election cycle, the politics of zoning play a significant role in who becomes the candidate of a political party. And that played out in the last elections in 2023, where the APC zoned its presidential ticket to the south, and the PDP couldn't reach a consensus whether to zone to the south or the north due to conflict of interest. Well, it's not just about the presidency. States also use zoning to decide who becomes governor. But zoning itself isn't in Nigeria's constitution. It's just a tradition, some sort of a political agreement of some sort. But how zoning, how has it helped Nigerians, right? And how has it made life better? Or is it just about grabbing power? Joining me in the studio is communications consultant and convener Ogun West Initiative, Bolaji Adeniji. So Adeniji, thanks for joining us on the program.
Yeah, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here this evening.
Glad to have you join us. So you've been all about supporting the need to zone the next governorship in Ogun State to Ogun West.
Yes.
And I just have to state that very clearly, that that's why you're here, right? But I'd like us to look at the concept of zoning itself, because the argument has been that zoning ensures equity. But critics say it promotes mediocrity, because what we see is parties prioritizing region over competence. Some will say, superior ideas should get more precedence over trying to guilt trip other zones. How do you react?
Well, first off, it's within the rights of those who feel that it's good to zone position so that every component part of every geographical location, every ethnic or sub-ethnic divisions in that location should have opportunity to enjoy all the God-given privileges under God in that environment, and that includes power. And so those who think that is right are entitled to their opinion, and it's valid. And for those who also propagate the fact that when you begin to zone, you are probably eliminating meritocracy, or you by that action, you limit capacity and competence to a particular place, and then you deny the benefit of having the best man emerge per time. But whichever we look at it, for a nation like Nigeria, whereby the fabrics of our nation, is not yet sewn together, and if we look at the history of how we have metamorphosed, we are not yet at that level whereby we can begin to say, let the best man emerge. And the truth is, if you look at every component part at the level, at the national level or at the subnational level, there are people, every part, every state.
We're not yet there, or we missed our ways. Because I will take you back to some 30 years ago, when we had a Muslim ticket.
Absolutely.
And the emphasis wasn't on religion.
It wasn't on.
30 years after, we had a big problem when the APC gave us a Muslim ticket. Some say that what has happened over the years is that Nigerians have become more polarized along ethnic and religious stands, which makes it difficult for meritocracy to have its way in leadership.
You're absolutely correct. We moved forward when we got to that point in 1993, whereby it didn't matter who the candidates were in terms of their religion or where they came from. Nigerians just wanted good governance, and they thought these people could do it, and they went to vote. Yeah. But moving forward, we have regressed in terms of building a national consensus, in terms of forging a more unified nation. And everybody agrees that Nigeria has never been this divided. And we saw that culminate in the outset of the 2023 elections, whereby it was just about, it was like Nigerians were just so divided. And so that is that. But the truth is, every component part of Nigerians has requisite competencies, the people who could do the job of governance. If you come to the subnationals in the state, most states have 3 senatorial districts. And I know for sure that every senatorial district in every state also has people, the people with capacity, with competence to do the job of governance. And so it wouldn't matter where such a person comes from. For those who argue for zoning, it is so because of having gotten to this point where we are in Nigeria today, whereby we have not evolved in our democracy, whereby the leadership recruitment process is so seamless, is meritorious, that those who are really popular and are loved by the parties or by communities emerge. So we still have a tele-guided democracy whereby it answers to the dictates and the whims and caprices of those who control power centers, either at the political party level or the community level. And so if that be the case, it will take almost donkey years or forever for some component part to become president of Nigeria, for instance, or become governor of a state, for instance.
My thinking is that,
yes,
will it matter where the president or the governor comes from if he's a good leader that caters to the needs of everyone?
It wouldn't matter where any leader comes from, so long as coming to deliver on the dividends of democracy as enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Governance, Section 14.2 says the primary purpose of governance shall be security and welfare of the people. So long you meet that constitutional rule, where you come from becomes irrelevant. But because successive administration at national and subnational levels have failed Nigerians, that's why every component part begin to say, okay, let's fight for ourselves.
For selfish reasons.
Let's take care of our own personal interests. That is a major issue. But again, we just have to look at the way to balance power and make sure that everybody has a sense of belonging in terms of equity. That's where those who argue for zoning and zoning and all that, suffice.
So let us take this conversation to Ogun State. Ogun has 3 senatorial districts: Central, West,
and East.
And East, right? Okay, so, and we're hearing that Ogun West hasn't produced a governor since 1976. But is zoning the only reason? Because there are also conversations around internal disunity or even weak political structures, a situation where we've seen in the past, in the election before the last, where 2 Ogun West candidates had more votes than the person who eventually became governor. Do you blame that on Central and the South?
Well, it may be unfair to wholly ascribe the failure of Ogun West to produce a governor in almost 50 years to the fact that they have not zoned it to Ogun West. No. Or to say it has been externally propelled. But if you look at the all nuances and all the factors, the existential realities around why Ogun West has not produced the governor, it is not just because of unity. See, disunity, lack of common purpose, is a cliche that have been dumped on the head of Ogun West by those people who have, unwittingly conspired to deny that zone. Let me give you a clear example. There's no point in time in Ogun State whereby, for example, the 2 senatorial districts that have produced the governor, the Central and the East, that they have not had multiple candidates of their own stock coming to the polls. And so that is not peculiar to Ogun West. But what they call disunity is a situation whereby when Ogun West, at every election turn, brings forth its best foot in a political party, and then you begin to have some other power centers outside of the state in trying to expand their own political fiefdom, identify somebody in that same Ogun West, put structures behind the person or put resources, and then you have multiple candidates. And then you now see that 2 Ogun West candidates have good numbers at the election, and then somebody from another senatorial district just edges them out marginally. And so this scenario has played itself out 2-3 times.
So do you need zoning to solve that problem?
You see, we are not in Ogun West today. The people of Ogun West are not asking for zoning, because that's, after all, the prerogative of political parties. If they take a decision, the APC, the PDP, Labour, SDP, whatever party it is, if they take a decision that, look, we want to zone the governorship ticket of our party to a particular zone of the state, it is their prerogative. Maybe they feel that in the spirit of equity, fairness, and justice, that these people deserve this, and we want to do that. That is fair. But Ogun West is not asking for this on the platform of zoning alone. It's asking for this as a way to ensure emancipation, because there's a dimension to this conversation that is now raising up this agitation more profoundly this time around. There's a nexus between power and development. If you go to the Ogun State today, the Ogun West Central District is far behind in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of access to human capital development and all that. And that has been eventuated.
But why is that so? Because Ogun West is supposed to be like an industrial hub.
Beautiful.
Where you have Dangote, cement and whatever.
Yes, the clusters, in the economic cluster in around Ado, Duota, into Agbara, down to Lagos, is in Ogun West. a lot of economic potential exists in Ogun West. Dangote is in Ogun West, Lafarge is in, a bit of Ogun West and Central. And so if you look at that and what Ogun West contributes to the IGR of Ogun State, it would amaze you that why are they lacking? It is simple. You see, no matter how benevolent you are as a leader, as a governor, when you assume office, your developmental agenda may be widespread. You may have that good faith to do well to the people of the state across board. But then there's a way that you see economic drive being galvanized in the direction of where they come from.
Is it possible that you are giving too much power to these other offices? Because inside Ogun West, you have representatives, you have members of the House of Reps, you have senators. I think the Deputy Speaker of the House of Assembly, as we're speaking right now, is from Ogun West, right?
No.
But you have had ministers. I think there was a Minister of State from the region in the past.
I'm saying ministers and all that.
Could Ogun West marginalization be less about zoning and who the governor is to more about a weak advocacy? Because why hasn't the district leveraged its industrial strength to demand more federal attention if it really has, if it's really an industrial hub? Do you need a governor to come from that region to make that happen?
I'll tell you why
when you have representatives.
You see, National Assembly representatives' primary duty is to make laws for the good development of Nigeria.
But they can also lobby.
They also lobby to ensure that, for example, we have a senator from Ogun West today who is attracting so much to the region in terms of infrastructure. And that is good. He's doing fantastically well as a legislator, as a senator, and also a bit of, and our House of Reps also doing well. But look, when you talk of the development in the state, a senator can probably bring some road maybe once in 3 years from the federal government because the budget is big. A rep can bring in some intervention within his small cocoon. But on the terms of the economic scale, where you are talking of infrastructure, community roads, healthcare centers, schools, markets, and then driving. Let me give an example. The economic cluster in Ogun State before was domiciled in Ogun West, where you mentioned earlier. But if you observe now, especially in the last 8 years or more, there has been a deliberate shift of moving the economic clusters to the Remo zone, into Shagamu, into Ijebu-Ode, into Ekpe, and the agro-cargo is in Remo zone, the airport is in Remo zone, and the governor is also from that environment. And so you see there's a nexus between power and development. So what we are saying is it would have been nice if the developmental agenda of the chief executive is to say, look, let me create more economic clusters so that we have a more robust economy for the state. But it is different where you are shifting, putting the gravitas of the economic power of the state to zones where they are from, and neglecting.
Let me interrupt you for a bit, because now
those are the issues.
For Ogun West to produce a governor, you will need the support of Central and East, right?
Absolutely.
But if your idea of having a governor from Ogun West is for the industrialization and development of Ogun West, why do you think the other senatorial zones will support you? Because it sounds like, you know what, all the hubs we've taken away from West, we're taking it back. We have to develop ourselves. I have heard one of your press briefings where you even talked about a particular industry in that region. Can't remember that you said has not had any development. It has not been fixed for a while. Why do you think the other senatorial districts will support an emergence of Ogun West if it is for the development of that zone?
Okay, nobody
because a governor is supposed to be governor for all, right?
Nobody has said that the desire for Ogun West to produce the governor is so that they can solely concentrate power and development in Ogun West.
Or you said there hasn't been development in Ogun West because you've not had a governor.
Look, I said it earlier, and this is a science and both an art, that there's a nexus between development and power. You see, there's a way that development follows where power is. And the desire this time around, and if you see what is happening around Ogun West today, the conversation today is to have an Ogun Westerner as governor who will develop Ogun State as a whole. And what we are saying is that, look, don't think and don't assume that Ogun West does not have the capacity to do that. Give it to the former governors. Former Governor Benga Daniel, Bikunle Amosun, and the current governor. They have done well. They have been able to do development as they know across the state. But it is not also rocket science to know that whilst they were there, there was a way that development a bit gravitated more to where they are. For example, I could say as an investor, okay, the governor is from so area. I want to go and build something around that environment. It's the governor, you go somewhere every weekend, you want to go and put in hotels there. And before you begin to know, there's a value chain effect of the fact that the governor is from this environment. We want that value chain effect because of power. But of course, when an Ogun Westerner becomes governor, he's going to be having a developmental agenda that is pan-Ogun State. So it is not for us to grab power and then say, now, after 50 years of negligence, of degradation, of deprivation, we now want, it is impossible for the governor to do that. It wouldn't even last 6 months if he does that.
But how do you deal with the diversity in your ethnicity for a start? Because some say in Ogun West you have the Aworis, you have the Oguns, right?
The Ketu,
you have
the
Anagos,
Ohori,
the
and all
Soko,
that.
the Yewa, and there seems to be more diversity within West than we have in, Central and the East. And that, of course, has been perhaps one of the reasons why we've seen multiplicity of candidacy. Everybody wants to be governor.
That's not correct. I corrected that insinuation a few days back somewhere. Diversity is a strength if well harnessed. I said it earlier that some of the reasons why Ogun West have not been governor, you can never find the fact that they were diversified in ethnicity. The Awori people in Ogun West, the Ohori people, the Ketu people, they speak one language when it comes to election period. You wouldn't find anybody say the reason why I'm not voting for the Awori man is because I'm from Ketu, or the reason why I'm not voting for the Ketu man is because I'm from Ohori. No, that is not the conversation. It's like Nigeria. It's like saying the reason why Nigeria has had an arrested development or that we have not moved forward in terms of our search for nationhood is because there's over 250 sub-ethnic groups and maybe 3, 4, 5, 7 major ethnic groups. In fact, there is strength in diversity if well harnessed. And if you go around Ogun West today, from Ota to Imeko to Diroko to Ipokia to Yewa South to Ilaro, the conversation is about we need this thing. But and they're having that consensus now.
Is it possible that you're overcoloring this unity? Because the senator you talked about, there are people who said maybe he's not originally from Ogun West, that he can become senator from Ogun West, but they won't allow him to become governor because they doubt whether he's actually from the region. I'm sure you've had conversations
We've
like
heard that. You see, what you want, if what you want is what I want, and if what I want is what you want, then I'll go out of my way to ensure that I will bring any narrative that precludes you from that competition. And that's what has happened to the senator from Ogun West. He is from Ogun West. Nobody has doubted it. People have gone to court. They feel they couldn't prove it. So if you think that the senator is not from Ogun West, come out and say it. Bring up your strong point. And don't forget that in this same Lagos State, a number of people came from different parts of Nigeria. They grew up in Lagos State and they served in Lagos State. Was in another state before. Rauf Aregbesola was in the state before. The current Minister of Mines still served in Lagos State. A number of them, ditto for the senator from Ogun West. He also served in Lagos State. And at a point, okay, I'm from a state. That's my original state. So let me get back in there and then try to see if I can use the privileges that I have
to
forum development. So
within
that is
the
not correct to
region?
say
Is there a forum within the region trying to get all these different voices together to support an Ogun West governor?
That is the beautiful thing that is happening now. All we have been discussing before now has been the issues around why Ogun West have not gained the ultimate political ascendancy. But now there's a paradigm shift in Ogun West today. The political class, the traditional class, the intelligentsia, and the youth are now speaking with one voice.
All right.
Our brightest political prospects are now talking among themselves. Look, we cannot continue to do the same thing and expect a different result.
Hopefully
before now, you can see that today Ogun West is bubbling and the people are more excited. And let me tell you this, the desire for Ogun West to become governor is now a popular demand in Ogun State, no longer a sectional agenda.
We have to go now. Hopefully you can eventually decide on a single candidate. Ultimately,
that will happen.
If Ogun West gets the governorship,
yes,
but fails to transform the district, then perhaps we would have been able to prove that the problem was never with zoning, but with leadership.
Well, we'll be back here to come and tell
back.
you
Exactly the point I was going to make.
That
eventually, if you get the governor, maybe we'll have this conversation again.
Absolutely. You can be so sure of that. And I think we are getting it for 2027.
Thank you so much for your contribution.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Bolaji Adeniji, communications consultant, convener, Ogun West Initiative, has been my guest on the show today. Well, that's our show today, everyone. Thanks for being a part of it. We're back next week with another exciting edition. I am Nifemi Ogutu. You can watch it again at midnight and at